Thank you for being here. Welcome. On behalf of the USC Center for Mindfulness Science, I want to warmly welcome for those of you joining us both here in person as well as those tuning in online. We're very glad you're with us for tonight's event. My name is Rael Cahn. I'm the director of the Center for Mindfulness Science here at USC. I'm also a psychiatrist and researcher here with the USC Department of Psychiatry, running a lab across the way at the Brain and Creativity Institute. It's a pleasure to gather for this conversation with my old friend and colleague, Dr. Michael Shapiro, author of Truth Medicine, Healing and Living Authentically Through Psychedelic Psychotherapy. Tonight we'll be exploring themes from Dr. Shapiro's work, including healing, authenticity, mindfulness, non-duality, and the role these perspectives can play in psychedelic psychotherapy and psychological transformation. Our format for the evening will be a moderated dialogue for approximately 60 minutes, followed by time for audience questions and answers at the end. For those of you here in person, there'll also be an opportunity at the end to purchase signed copies of Michael's book. We're going to set up a little table back there. I also want to take a moment to say a few words about the USC Center for Mindfulness Science. The center is a nonprofit university organization. Events like this one are made possible through the generosity of donors and supporters who believe in the importance of bridging rigorous science, meditative practice, and meaningful public dialogue together. One distinctive aspect of our center, as a Center for Mindfulness, is the commitment to creating a space for careful and thoughtful engagement at the interface of mindfulness and meditation, contemplative practices with emerging psychedelic psychotherapies. We believe this is an especially important area for dialogue, for research, and for reflection, with the potential to impact the understanding of mind and mental health in a transformative way. More broadly, the center exists to advance understanding of mental health and to support approaches that can promote healing, resilience, and transformation in people's lives. We're proud to help foster conversations such as the one we have tonight, which bring together science, clinical insight, and contemplative wisdom in service of that larger mission. If you'd like to support our efforts to help us continue sponsoring programs like this one, we'd be deeply grateful for your donations. You can see here a QR code that can be used. Oh, that's great timing.
Don't worry about it. You can pay now.
That can be used to give donations to the center. You can go to our Center for Mindfulness Science website. There's a support page. It's easy to find a way if you're interested to support the center. A few words about my dear friend Michael, who's here with us tonight. One, Michael has transformed from a young clinical psychologist with a background as a monk, a Buddhist monk, which is the situation I found when I first met him back in 2012 at a gathering of people devoted to exploring the future of meditation research at Esalen back in 2012, brought together by Cassie Wheaton of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And Michael was not a meditation researcher like most of the attendees there, but instead a very skillful facilitator and communicator who was primarily there because he's a good friend of Cassie's, and Cassie had the insight to understand it would be helpful to have people who have a heart-centered way of opening communication amongst folks for the purpose of a dialogue around the future of meditation research. We connected, from the beginning, and it was really quite a transformation over the years to see him go from, being a Buddhist monk psychotherapist to a leading psychedelic psychotherapist with a lot of experience in the field. And just a few words about his work. He will be able to elaborate much more in detail about this as we go through the dialogue, but he's done a lot of work specifically with a couple of populations of interest, first responders and combat veterans in particular. with psychedelic psychotherapy, using the full range of psychedelic medicines, ketamine, a lot of ketamine work, but also psilocybin, 5-MeO. Those are the primary ones that I know of. But he may share more. And of course, you can find out, all about his background and his approach to therapy through his book. Thank you again for being here. We're delighted to have you with us, and we look forward to what I know will be a thoughtful and inspiring conversation. Those were my prepared remarks. So
we can relax.
Yeah,
now.
we can relax now.
Thank God. Formal sucks.
So it's just really a pleasure to have you here. And if you want to give any other introductory remarks to yourself before we get into dialogue, feel free.
Sure.
But the floor is yours for starting some meditation as well.
Thanks everybody for coming on, what night is it? Thursday night. I flew out from Idaho for this. I work in Boise, Idaho, all over the world too, but that's my home base. And I am on several first responder teams with the police department. As a psychologist, I go out with SWAT operators on the negotiator side, so I'm a trained negotiator. I ride with fire dudes, so I'm on trucks and engines, going to scene, helping bystanders, and then talking about what they're doing on scene and how it impacts them on the way back to the station. And so that's what I do. I also have those guys and women come to the ketamine clinic where we work through those issues that come up in their service. And I've been doing that with combat veterans and special operators as well for many years, working with different organizations, doing retreats all over Mexico and parts of the United States. And might be able to talk a little bit about that later tonight if that's of interest to you. And then I work with the community as well, the regular teachers and parents, people who just need to transform from the conditions that are weighing them down. My whole work is about helping people live fully and really be themselves in this life, not the conditions, not the habits and the patterns that were set up because of culture and parents and society that pin us in and repress and push down our soul, the spark that wants to come out. And so people come to me going, I don't feel fully alive. I don't even feel good in my own body. And we look at why that is, and then we use the medicine to help them gain a greater awareness of those programs that run, because they can see them running in real time. And my work, which is different than most in the field, is I'm engaged in deep talk, deep psychotherapy, Buddhist-oriented psychotherapy when they're on medicine. And so it's kind of a triangle of the medicine's working, their psyches and their wisdom is interacting. I'm doing my job with them, and there's like this triangle of work that happens. So it's a little bit different than in the field where you have eye shades and people are going deeply inward and then we kind of talk at the end. I'm really helping them navigate the psychedelic state, the cosmos that appears in images and signs and symbols, and then the psyche that arises. We're using all of that. We're going to get into this, but I wanted to give you that up front. Also, one thing is I do not believe the medicines are our saviors. I don't believe they're the end all. I think the work we do on the medicine is what's pivotal. Not exactly the medicine themselves. I have a lot of respect for each medicine, but I don't think the medicine, which is a substance that might have spirit to it, is the answer. I think the human heart, our wisdom, intuition, our connection, our relationships, I think this is the true medicine. And so I help people touch that when they're on a substance. Is that good? Did I get a gold star for that one? Okay, cool. He's like my older brother. I got to check in with him. I wanted to start off with a meditation because that's what I do as a monk. All my retreats, all my individual sessions, we all drop in together and it will bond us. So you don't have to get in any crazy position. You can just stay right where you're at. And if you don't like meditating, don't do anything while I'm doing this. You can opt out of it by just being. So go ahead and bring your awareness into your body and feel the body sitting on the chair, the backs of the legs, the bottom of the feet. Become aware of the position and posture of your body. The outline and shape of your body. Bring your mind's attention inward, inside the body. And feel the body's presence. The radiant presence of your own body. Begin to breathe slowly and steady through the nose into the belly. A slow breath through the nose, throat, lungs, and belly. And back out from the belly, up the lungs, throat, and out the nose. Let the breath be like slow rolling waves of the ocean. Notice how the body changes and moves with each breath. And bring your attention to the skin, the tingling of the skin. The air against the skin. The temperature of the air. The density of the air around you. And bring your attention to the room itself, the space of the room. Feel into the room. Noticing sound and light. And bring your attention back inside to your own heart beating. Find the heart beating in the chest or throat, in the face. And breathe into the beating heart. Breathe in and out from the heart. And just for a moment, ask your own heart what it longs for you the most. What does your own heart want the most for you? Ask it. And listen. And just notice the silence and stillness, the beating heart, the breath, the body. Let's take one deep breath together. Exhale softly. Gentle smile at the lips. And slowly, without losing this embodied presence, gently open the eyes. You feel that? I was working in prison and some dude's like, that's better than the weed we get here. This peace. What did you hear your heart say? Anybody? Just share some words. What did you hear? Stillness. Yeah, mine said that. Clarity? Stillness, clarity, and freedom. Thank you. What else did you hear? Just shout it out. Love, truth, safety. What? Peace. Thank you. What else? What's that? You. Your heart said you wanted, as in you. It just wanted you. The great you. May you find you. This is how I start with clients. Go right to the center. What are you longing for? People come in and they're, you think that I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to anxious. This is my trauma, I'm like, well, that's what you don't want. And if you keep looking at what you don't want, you're going to keep seeing it. What do you want to turn your attention to? And the heart often has words that then we can guide ourselves to. Why don't we have stillness? Why don't we have peace? What's in the way of those things? So then we start working toward those. We go toward where the heart is pointing. It's a beacon on the horizon. And this work can get us there. So we identify it first. That's where we start. Thank you for sitting and getting quiet together. Your own, dude.
Thank you. One of the things that makes your work distinctive in the current landscape of psychedelic exposition, writing, talking, research, is the bringing together of the psychotherapy with the contemplative practice and psychedelic medicine. Mm-hmm. All three together. And so I'd like to just begin there inquiring about, how you came to bring these things together, as, what you've been doing so much of for these last years of your life. So I have some kind of additional questions that might point that way, but that may be enough for you to just take it from there.
I think all of them are essential. Meditation, for me, there's many purposes for it, but greater self-awareness, awareness of body, awareness of thoughts, beliefs. We become quiet and still, and then we see all the inner workings of our mind, our psyches. We see when we are learning to be quiet, we even see ourselves interacting with our spouses, employers, and our children. And it doesn't necessarily change it right away, but we can't change what we don't see. So in all of my work for years, self-awareness has been the modality to bring people toward change. So I always use that. I can't not use that. Then there's the greater awareness that we can dissolve. When we talk about non-dual awareness, when we dissolve into the space itself. So there's a greater practice of awareness that is not just for seeing this human existence, but for seeing that we are actually a part of great existence, the mystery, that we're a part of everything that's happening. We're not separate from it. I'm not an actor in a movie. I am a part of the scene. I am the actor and a part of the scene. And that gives us greater connection and we feel a sense of belonging. So meditation not only gives us this inner knowing, but it also helps us connect and really see our relationship to the greater mystery of life. So that's what I'm doing with meditation. And I'm often, while I'm in session with people, let's just say on ketamine, I'm training them to be self-aware at the time they're on ketamine too. It's a really great training opportunity for people because they're just watching their stuff. They're watching their thoughts. People with ADHD are like, holy shit, my mind doesn't shut up. I'm like, I know, I've been watching it for weeks, you know? And they're, you know, people with relational problems, attachment problems, see, oh God, I'm really desperate for my daughter's love. And they're seeing the desperation of for their daughter's love, not just flooded by the desperation, but like seeing it. That is a shift that has to happen for them in waking life, not on medicine, to go, oh, I don't need to be desperate. I feel the flooding of it, but I don't want to be desperate because it pushes my daughter away. So I'm using meditation as a intervention while we're working together, even while on medicine, to help them see themselves very clearly. The psychotherapy part just is what I do as a psychologist, and I recognize that when I'm with people and they're talking with me on medicine, there is a vulnerability, a rawness, an authenticity that they don't have when they're not on medicine. And that's an amazing opportunity for me as a therapist to like talk to that part of them that is like, you know, before we start therapy, before we do the medicine, they might be like, my dad wasn't so bad. And I'm like, okay, we'll get there. And, you know, they're protective of, I don't want to talk bad. I'm like, okay, you know, you don't want to say what you don't want to say right now. And then they get on medicine and then they're like, fuck that guy. He was awful, terrible to me. Sorry, I swear a lot. I work with, you know, that's just what you get. Sorry. I don't work in all right. So, you know, they start saying what's real. Hey, I do not like how I was treated. I don't even like my dad. And where they never would have said that before. And it's not like we're trying to blame the dad. It's to give them permission to say what they need to say. Because most of us don't actually say what we need to say. And that is depressing. It makes us anxious. And so in psychotherapy, I'm talking to their more real, raw, authentic, truthful self. And we're having a real dialogue that's unfiltered and not defended. That's why I added psychotherapy piece to this work as well, because I'm really helping them become their authentic, true nature and their version of themselves. And even the nonverbal nature, we get to that too. They recognize they're just beings. They're just a part of the whole thing. That's not verbal. You don't need to have, you know, psychotherapy for that piece. So it gets complex because I'm working on a variety of levels. I'll just stop there then. Does that make sense? Is that making sense here? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious to pick up on that last point you made, though, that people realize that they are part of the whole thing. I know in my work with psychedelic therapy especially, oftentimes people are realizing that they are the whole thing, not part of the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
That's something that you process with people as well?
Oh yeah, you know, ketamine really, it's interesting. I've seen more of the non-dual, I am this thing, I am the whole thing, I am not a part of, I am the fabric of the thing, or I am the space in which all of this is held. I see people say that all the time. And that's a beautiful spiritual platitude. But I mean, it's beautiful in reality, but like, how do I help them use that to reduce their suffering and hit their goals and then transform? Because you can jump on a trampoline and see the cosmos, and you come back down and you got to pay bills and the kids are screaming and you're like, where did that go? So how do you, I am literally a part of all of this. How does that transform into, I walk around the world differently, I talk differently, I treat people and myself differently. Otherwise, it's just incense smoke. It's really fragrant, but it disappears. So my work is very practical because if they're going to have mystical experiences, how does that translate to health, well-being, ethics?
Very good questions. I think that's a very kind of critical point that the field is at as a whole, you know, but these repeated demonstrations in study after study that the degree of mystical experience seems to correlate better than anything else with improvements in their life afterwards.
For sure, yeah.
And full-blown mystical experience, like not, oh, I feel part of everything, like there is nothing but me. And yet, you know, it's not usually when experienced by someone who's not having a pathological ramp into mania or psychotic break, you know, which I don't see often because we don't give psilocybin to schizophrenic and bipolar people. There may be place for that someday, but certainly that day is not today, it seems. So the experience, you know, there's an inherent awareness as they're speaking, the kind of the paradox that they are speaking. You know, that they're speaking to this impossible situation. That if they are everything, how can they even be using the vocal cords to emanate sound?
Oh, well, this is...
It's that everything, nothing, everything, something.
Yeah, this is how the universe shows up in this body, this temperament, this hair, this voice, and it's just speaking. Now, when Mike is speaking, Mike is a temporal, limited, self-centered dude who talks about himself and what he's thinking. And then when mystical Mike, and that disappears, and then universe works through mystical Mike, it's not personal. It's not about me. It is the universe speaking itself. My teacher likes to, after a retreat, you know, we look at each other, we're just eye gazing, and we get quiet, we just drop into the eye gazing. And he's like, love, loving, love. It's like, it sounds corny, but like the essence of love, loving, love, the essence of love, it's the field loving itself. And people who have those mystical, deep, true mystical experiences often leave not being as bothered by the temporal, limited, ego, self-centered stuff that we're like that. It just doesn't bother us. It's not of a bother anymore. You still have to deal with it, and you're right, but it's just the universe doing its thing through you. It's hard to sustain that. You got to practice that. You got to like integrate that.
Yeah.
I'm not on drugs. We're not on drugs up here, just so you know. You know, it sounds like it. Like we didn't. Like it's like in A Bug's Life. Have you seen that? And they're all smoking weed together and looking up at the stars, and they're like, "The universe, we are the universe." Well, that's what it gives you. Even weed can do that too.
I'm curious, you know, can you speak a little bit about how you became specifically interested in doing work with psychedelics, given your background in meditation?
I started using at 15, so it's been a lifelong journey. You know, I used acid in high school and then started leading groups at 18 because that's what my friends asked me to do because I could hold space for them. So I would take them in the forest and I'd be on it too, but I was able like to have a mind that was fragmented and disorienting and lots of images, but still have greater spatial awareness and sensory. I was still on. And so I could lead them. And one time we had a forest ranger come up to us and all of my friends were like, "Oh no." And I was like, "Sorry." And I just talked to the guy like, "Hey, we're lost. We're just looking for the trail." And he was like, "Oh yeah, no problem." And he takes us, you know, leads us to where we need to go. I didn't set out to do this. I had no interest in doing psychedelics as a profession. I was just asked over and over to hold space for people and then to sit with them and then to guide them on ceremony and then to go on retreats with veterans and first responders. And it just became a thing I just did, and I still don't really want to do it. I mean, really, I have other things I'd like to do, but like I just fell into it, and then I started seeing how people's minds operated really well while they're under medicine. And I knew the potential of transformation was so huge that I couldn't stop doing this work. because the changes were so profound in 3 to 6 sessions, where I was working with someone for like 3 years on agoraphobia. She wouldn't go out of her house without freaking out. She'd drive to work, and halfway there, she'd get all scared she was going to mess up and be embarrassed at work, and would drive home. I worked with her for 3 years using mindfulness and all kinds of trauma interventions, and 3 sessions of ketamine. And I detailed this story in the book. 3 sessions of ketamine showed her fears were unreasonable and unrealistic. This is significant agoraphobia. And within a few months, she went to parties, concerts, ran a 5K, got a promotion at work. That is significant for someone who was, absolutely dysfunctional, because she was able to love herself so much in those states, and also see what she was creating was a fiction, that it disappeared. And she's still living. This is years ago, and she's still doing awesome. That's powerful transformation. So I keep doing this, even though it's very tiring to do this work, actually.
And in terms of just the kind of timeline of your life, the psychedelics did precede your deep engagement with meditative practice.
Yeah, I started when I was 18 studying Zen, but the psychedelics at 15, just, you imagine you're 15 and your mind is blown. You see things became a terrible teen, because I'm like, you're all full of shit, because I've seen behind what you're saying and you're just making stuff up, which is true. Adults and our teachers, we try to say the best things we can, but when you do this medicine and you see behind the veil, it just disrupts ordinary life. And so I had to find meditation to ground me.
Yeah.
I still did well in school. I did all the things, but it was too big for a mind that size. And so meditation and Buddhism grounded me, gave me a language for the cosmos, for the psyche, for my mind. And then I started living in temples and monasteries. And when I do something, I do it fully. And so I lived in Thailand in caves and lived in Zen monasteries and trained and trained and trained. And I wasn't even going to be a psychologist. I was teaching yoga, and people kept coming to me for help, real deep help. And I didn't have the language to help them. So I got the doctorate in clinical psychology. So I had tools to work with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting, that it's a recapitulation of so many people's story who are became some of the leaders of the meditation in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, including Peace Corps. Jack Kornfield did the same thing. He was a monk, went to Peace Corps, psychologist, did all the medicines. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's an opening for so many people, a psychedelic experience, and it's also, for many of us, it becomes clear at some point in our early experiences with them that just doing these drugs is not taking me where I want to go. Mm-hmm. I need to learn something besides just taking this drug. Oh,
totally. Yeah. That's right. That's why I'm a big proponent on podcasts and in my book. The drug is not the medicine's not the answer. As much as people want to sexify it, the medicine is not the answer. And so it's in my book. I talk about it so that people understand it's hard work to transform. The medicine will make it easier. It lends itself to your transformation. It wants us to transform, but we have to do the work ourselves.
Do you have your phone?
Yeah, I do.
I just want to have some orientation to time. Oh,
yeah, it's 6:44. Okay, there we go. So, yeah. Is this good so far? You guys, I hope it's entertaining enough. Okay. Oh, you don't have to clap, but thank you. No, don't. No, but just checking in.
We're not boring you guys too much. So I want to get into a little bit more about authenticity, something you speak about a lot in the book. You suggest that many people live from adaptations that once protected them, but no longer allow them to live fully. Mm-hmm. How do you define authenticity?
There's levels of authenticity. You know, if we look around and we see all the cool jewelry and things everybody's wearing, that's the external, you know, representation of what maybe we value, and style, things we want to represent on the outside. So there's like this external authenticity where, you know, someone's just like, that's an authentic person. It's a 75-year-old man with purple hair and earrings, and you're like, that's amazing. You know, I hope I'm that myself when I'm that age. And then there's the internal authenticity. Am I following the compass of my heart, the values that my heart has set for me, not my dad, not my culture, not the church? You might keep some of those values if they work for you, but many of us have been force-fed other people's beliefs and values, and we internalize them, and we become this persona of those beliefs of other people. And we're walking around the world acting in our dads or moms or culture's voices and their beliefs. And then we're like, I am super misaligned with who I am and what I'm doing and what I say. And I said, well, who taught you what you know? And do you want to keep those beliefs? You don't have to. And so part of our work is identifying pretty early on, we are conditioned and we have been habituated to other people's expectations, other people's beliefs, and other people's values. So a part of this work is just recognizing that. And then we drop into the heart space where we start talking to this beautiful thing that is just so uniquely us. And we say, what do you believe? What do I believe? What do I hold most true? Not because I was Mormon and now I'm not Mormon, so I have to like, but I'm in Boise, so that's one example of a lot of people who come to me. But what is true for me? And most people who haven't done this work don't even know. I don't even know. And I'm like, well, it's time we get quiet and start having a relationship with our heart. And that's part of this work. And that's the more true authenticity, I think, that we start hearing what's true for us. I don't want to do this. I really want to do this. This is what I've always wanted to do. This is who I've always wanted to be. And then we start moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing, you know, as you know, I am also a clinician. I work with people both in kind of mainstream psychiatric clinic settings, and then also in the context of the clinical work with psilocybin assisted therapy. And I do notice psilocybin is very helpful for a lot of people to identify things that are really authentically true for them in ways that, you know, talk therapy oftentimes seems to miss the boat. And, you know, like you, I also agree that the medicine is allowing us to tap into something that's true, whether the medicine's in our brains or not. And that field of experience that becomes visible has one thing that is very clear about it is there's a much less defined sense of boundaries about, you know, right and wrong or in and out, me, not me. All these things become much less distinct and kind of palpable in the experience. And somehow when those boundaries are no longer so palpable, it seems to also be the case that getting in touch with something inside of yourself, and you're calling it the heart. I think there's probably some real reason why we call it the heart, although we don't know why, right? That's also a beating muscle, medically speaking. But there's something that seems to connect us with all other things, and that we call metaphorically the heart. It also pumps the blood to make sure that we stay alive physically. But I'm speaking around this challenge of identifying authenticity, the kind of magical capacity, it seems, that psychedelics have to help people get into an experience of what's authentic for them. But maybe it could be useful to speak a little bit about how you recognize when you are seeing in a person that you are with, that they're in touch with their authenticity.
And I think the third level, which I didn't talk about, which you did talk about, is the identification as the whole. That's another level of authenticity that people discover. Oh, I I actually am a part and the whole at the same time. I'm ocean and I'm the wave. And that becomes a part of how we see ourselves, which is really important, because when you understand we're interdependently connected, that this is the fabric of life. If I beat myself up with drugs and all the things I could do to hurt myself or bad habits, I'm not only hurting this organism, I'm hurting the whole entire fabric of universe. And also it makes us much less prone to hurting other people, because we know this is you, me, I, we. There's no distinction in that level. The interdependence of nature, that all of this exists together, makes it really hard for me to want to hurt anybody, myself included. So the value of social ethics, pro-social behavior, goes up a lot when we have those deeper identity shifts of, oh, I am all of this. So it's my responsibility to really tend. I have a consciousness I'm going to tend, a body I tend, your body I tend to. So that's another layer of authenticity I see. And it's very clear, I mean, at all those three levels that I said, the external authenticity, people are like, I want to start changing the way I look and dress. I'm like, yeah, that's your next assignment. I want you to come back and not look like that. Look like something else. Then the deeper level of authenticity, the job I've in, doesn't serve me and I really don't like it. I'm not saying go quit. You know not to quit anything after you do drugs, medicine, I mean. But what would move you toward what you really want to do? So a lot of people in session will go, I want to do this. I want to be a baker. I want to use bread. I want to use flour instead of being a banker. They will say that, and I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful thing. And can you visualize it? Can you play with that idea? And then they, in session, start seeing themselves doing that thing, which then they leave session and start journaling, dreaming, scheming. Serious. And then they change their life because they're motivated to go in that direction.
Which is a very beautiful thing to witness, I know.
It's incredible.
And
I get
bring
free
you
bread
back to
and
the
stuff
initial
too.
question. We went off on a little bit of a very delicious tangent for me personally, but I'm still really interested because I think you have something to say about this. How do you recognize when a patient you're working with is shifting, from maybe a more survival-based identity to authenticity?
Oh, okay.
How do you know?
I mean, they're very verbal with me, and also their body language shifts.
I was thinking it might have to do with feeling.
Oh, it's all emotion. Everything I do is emotion.
Yeah.
Emotion is the way all the psyche is expressed. Actually, it's not in words and thoughts. That's the gobbledygook that kind of trips on itself. But when we get to the belly, when they're in their belly and their body, they're like, you can see them. I don't want, this isn't right. This is right. This isn't right. This is right. So there's a somatic component. It's very clear. When you've been in your power, it's empowering, man. Like someone speaking their truth, it feels a certain way when you're around it.
I get tingles.
You get tingles. Where do you get tingles? Where do you get tingles?
On my head.
Oh, okay.
And running down my back.
Just checking. You get tingles when they're waking up, when
they're being authentic.
Uh-huh.
When that shift is happening. That's how, I don't know that I can say I know it, but
I see what you're asking.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. That's what's happening here.
Well, I independent of me, I'm observing something, and I feel when you're with someone who's fully empowered, you feel it. When you're with someone who's in fear mode, anger mode, you feel it.
Yeah.
So it's very clear when someone's shifting because there's a confidence and empowerment that is embodied in them. Body language changes. Their words are changing, becoming clearer, more concise.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see those things happen.
Yeah.
You can do it all now. None of you have to do medicine to do this. If you want to step, I mean it. You visualize who you are, and then you visualize who you really want to become. And it might be just a small shift away from who you are. Nothing's wrong with you right now. But maybe there's a small shift and you imagine it, and then you embody what you imagine. Your body, literal body, will shift to feel that thing that your future self is already doing. It happens a lot easier in medicine, but we can practice that now because it's a gift we all have. It's the power of imagination and then embodying what we're seeing. And I often see that in session with people. Well, that takes a while. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of grief, unprocessed grief. This isn't all like people come in and then they're fully embodied. We do a lot of work on unprocessed grief, resentment. There's a lot of that comes out in most sessions.
For those who are newer to psychedelic therapy, what do you see as the most and importantly misunderstood part of the process? Whether it's preparation, the medicine session itself, or integration, any aspects in there that are often misunderstood?
I think people are coming in hoping the medicine's going to save them. And when it gets hard, and they're like texting me the next day, I didn't like it. I thought I would feel lighter. I thought I would feel better. And now I'm just scared like I was when I was 5 years old. And I'm like, yeah, tell me more what you're witnessing yourself doing. Yeah, when I was 5, I used to hide. I'm 48 and I'm hiding now. Oh, that's my pattern. I'm like, amazing, there you go. But the first 5 texts were, this sucks, you suck, the clinic sucks. I swear to God, I should read you that text from yesterday. The clinic is too loud, this isn't this, isn't this. I'm like, I don't know if this is right for me. I go, it might not be. I'm hearing a lot of fear in there. And she goes off and tells me all the things she's learning about herself. I'm like, see, that's what you're doing. But the misunderstanding is I'm going to come feel better when I do the medicine. It's going to make me feel better. And I can't convince people they're wrong.
Right.
They're just coming in with that expectation, no matter how much I prime them to be like, hey, that is an expectation. What would be your intention instead? There are lots of hope because suffering sucks. And they want to get out of it. So that would be one of the biggest pieces, I think.
One of the things that your book comes back to is, I think, a common frame of reference for this growing understanding about psychedelic approaches to therapy and healing, which is that doing some deep healing for an individual is not primarily a cognitive or a narrative-based thing, and that the body, presence, and awareness are really fundamental. Mm-hmm. Which kind of brings us to some questions I want to ask about mindfulness and embodiment. Of course, mindfulness, implies embodiment, awareness of the body, not just the thoughts, as well as non-duality. What would you say for people who are coming from a mindfulness background? What does psychedelic therapy offer that meditation alone sometimes cannot do?
Mm-hmm. I think it breaks the fourth wall in theater. You have a fourth wall where the actors are engaging with the audience. And unless you're doing really deep like non-dual or shamanic meditations, often the fourth wall isn't broken with the universe. We're here, I'm still in my body, got a lot of thoughts going on. Maybe I'm visualizing some things that are cosmic, but I don't really know what they are, if they're cosmic or not cosmic, or cosmic meaning the universe itself presenting through images, symbols, signs, things like that. With psychedelics, you are in the universe. You have a visceral experience of the universe. You are the universe. I use this example a lot. Krishna showing Arjuna the fundamental nature of the universe is everything, everywhere, all at once, and that is the primary difference. Now, you can get there with meditation, but that's a hard practice. You need guidance and teachers and learning how to let go and surrender too. But the medicine, immediately you take a hit of 5, and the cosmos shows itself very clearly to you.
Yes. And that's 5-methoxy-DMT for those who don't know what 5 is referring
the
to.
Toad. The toad. So that's the difference, you know. Meditation, I'm still me in here, and you're on the toad, you're on the five, and it's like, oh, holy shit, that is vast and infinite and chaotic and loving and beautiful. Takes a lot of meditation to have that experience. If it doesn't even really, can't really.
Curious, I have some stories like this that I could convey. Do you have stories of people you've known who have a history of doing a lot of practice and being stuck in some important personal ways in their own development, who then do psychedelics and find, well, this is actually what I was looking for?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that I'm aware of or I can think about
Yeah.
at this moment. Yeah. Where the psychedelic is the thing that really unlocked what needed to be unlocked.
Okay.
Well, people get staunch in their meditation practices and get really stuck.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
And so shaking that up can be very profound and helpful for people.
On the other side,
Yeah.
what does mindfulness meditative practice offer that psychedelic experiences alone often do not?
Oh, I like that. It's for me, it's grounding, quietude, silence that underlies all of everything, all the sensations. So we have sensations, thoughts, beliefs, but underneath that is a total quiet and stillness, like the very bottom of a flowing river. It's very still down there. And meditation can bring us to that and become a fundamental way of being in the world. And I don't see medicine doing that as much. Although sometimes on ketamine, people can touch that stillness and quietude and just rest and be. A lot of my clients at the end of ketamine, they might just say, I'm just being. So it can, there's some medicines that can bring you to being, but I think meditation is the way to go for that.
And you often begin with the body in your practice, right? Your practice instructions for us tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Embodiment. Why do you think embodiment is such a crucial doorway for this work?
So we start with the body because it's the easiest thing that we can touch. It's here. We can feel the sensations pretty quickly. People struggle, especially the dudes I work with, to name emotions. So if I'm going to, what are you feeling? A lot of people, including women I work with too, especially if they've shut down their senses because of trauma, often struggle to name an emotion. The sensations are the language of emotion. It's how emotion is expressed. And so if we shut down this thing, people come going, I can't feel joy. I go, how are you doing with sadness? No, I don't want to touch sadness. I shut down with sadness. I'm like, well, good luck touching joy if you're shutting down sadness. It doesn't work that way. So my job is to help them trust they can tolerate these sensations of emotions they've shut down. So it is all about the relationship to the body, which is housing our consciousness. This is a very sacred temple with tons of wisdom in it. And I want them to have a relationship to the wisdom of their body so they can make decisions that are good for them. Because the body will tell you, don't do it, do it. And if you're not, the body will say, I'm not feeling good, tend to me, or God, this is amazing. And it's like people without relationship to their body is like eating menus, paper. There's no flavor. So this is where the flavor of life is. And that's why I want people to have a relationship to their body.
By the way, if there are any, I know we're having a little bit of a turn of our historic relationship here, in the sense that in the past you've been interviewing me for podcasts.
Yep.
I'm interviewing you, so to speak. And we talked about this being a dialogue. So if there's any questions you have back to me, feel free. I should have said that.
Oh, thank you.
Not at the end.
As you said, I've heard you talk a lot over the years. I'm totally kidding.
Yes, indeed. But I just wanted, for this last 10 minutes before we kind of open up to the field, if that feels appropriate, feel free. I want to kind of come to where this work is going to, you know, what is this all leading towards? That's a big open question, I think, for people who are paying attention to the fact that, like, this is different than the way we've been viewing and treating mental health for so long. What's happening nowadays? As it becomes more, psychedelic therapy become more visible, more medicalized, available within the medical, as you are a prime example of that, right? You're working at a ketamine clinic. You have done a lot of this underground or above ground, but in other countries, but like stuff that can't be done legally in a non, research-based way, with 5 or psilocybin. But you're also doing this work in a clinic that like has advertising and is part of the medical system. So as it becomes more visible, more medicalized, what do you hope that this kind of work kind of comes to look like? In other words, there are many different threads of advancement, that you can see right now, from pharmaceutical companies hoping to make a lot of money on, a particular approach that involves very little psychological support, just some people to quote unquote monitor and give the drug and go on your way, to the kind of thing that you're doing. But what do you see as important for actually having this work make a positive impact in our world?
My true answer is that it's going to be misused and taken over by rich people who want to get richer and used for their own ends. Sorry, I'm just talking real for a second, because that's what I see, how can we use this? And good people are going to do good work as best they can, and it's going to be confiscated and then really medicalized and used as a pill. What's the difference in this? I mean, you can tell me there's a difference in SSRIs or SNRIs and a psilocybin pill, but in that case, it becomes another thing people are taking to not deal with the actual beauty of the chaos of our lives. And my fear is that it's just going to be misused, and it's going to be on TV, and we're going to miss an opportunity to actually transform our communities by doing the deeper work that we can do. My hope would be it would be brought to places that really need it, recovery centers and home, where people can use it in a way that transforms their experience of themselves and feel seen and heard. That the history of misuse of psychedelics with people of color, especially Black women and Black men, it was really misused and harmed a lot of people. How are we going to tend to that? How are we going to use the medicine to repair the deep wounds that have been caused? These are my fears and my hopes. And I don't trust humans to do what's good for humans. So I'm not sure what we're going to be doing with it. But I hope that we take it, the ethics of this, very seriously. Damn, I got chills saying that, because it's like vulnerable to say stuff like that, And I mean, like,
you're giving voice, I think, to a substantial number of people in the psychedelic kind of movement, both within academia and without, have a similar fear, no doubt. It seems to me that if we are studying some of the prime distinctions that you are oriented to in your work, authenticity, self-transcendence, in ways that are demonstrably related to well-being and health, that if there are ways to have those kinds of outcomes that do involve a greater psychotherapeutic and or philosophic framework of understanding to enable. And there are other ways of using these medicines that don't lead to those, that, those studies will demonstrate that difference if they are done. What do you think about that?
I was thinking about that last question still, so.
Go ahead. You want to go back
Well,
to it?
I want to check in, honestly, with the audience, because I felt the audience. I feel you when I'm talking. Yeah, and there's a gentleman that, back there who has his hand up, and I'd like to see how he's feeling and thinking and all that.
Yeah, the reason why I had to raise my hand up at this point is my other fear regarding the legalization of psychedelics in the industry has to do with who makes money out of it, who makes a living out of it. The same fate that kind of befell recreational marijuana from criminalization to legalization. Back when marijuana was illegal, the majority of people who grew, sell, and use the drugs were racial minorities.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, because it was illegal, many people were in prison.
Mm-hmm.
If for something as simple as possession of it. Then it became legalized, well, first medically, which didn't make much sense, but then recreationally in a few states. The majority of people who took advantage of the business opportunity to make money off of it were mostly Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
So racial minorities who were growing and making money out of stuff missed out on what was apparently $1 billion opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my main concern.
Mm-hmm.
When he had that question, what do you think would happen when we see the light of the positive effects of this and decide to make it legal?
Yeah, and that's really and
could you kind of summarize the question for the Zoom folks?
The Zoom folks is like, the issues with marijuana becoming legalized is that for a long time, primarily racial minorities who were growing and selling actually ended up being imprisoned and serving long-term sentences for doing that. And then it became legal, and then it became a business that had billions of dollars that really, honestly, sorry to be just direct, like a lot of rich white folk made money off of while people of color suffered. And it's just an awful disparity. And the gentleman was wondering, is that the same kind? I'm sorry, this is important that we talk about. I think it's important we talk about these things because we're talking about a medicine. So we're talking about medicines that's supposed to liberate consciousness and help us heal. But if it's not done in a way that is equal and that is respectful of all people who need it, then it's just another way of oppressing. It's just another way of some people are down and other people get lifted up even higher. And as they make a lot of money off of these new drugs that are coming out, it's going to be probably the same model. And that is an issue, especially when you're talking about medicines that are supposed to bring our consciousness to a place of caring for people and doing something to repair and the harm that's been done. Because if a medicine is teaching you that there's an interdependence of all things, then we have a responsibility to uplift and to take care of all things equally. And that if that's not happening, then to me that's kind of a farcical use of a medicine that is supposed to be doing that. So I don't like politics. I want to step out of that stuff, and I just want to help heal people. But the truth is that would be turning a blind eye to the underlying issues. I had no idea we were going to talk about this, but it just seemed important to say it. And I'm open to being wrong and having your opinions on all this too. So, but it's important that we consider these things as we move forward in the future of this medicine.
No doubt about that. Yeah.
Can we go to question and answer, do you think?
Yeah, I would say just my last question to close is what's one thing you would hope that readers would take from your book, Truth Medicine?
That you don't need the medicine to do this work. It's very helpful, but that at the very end of my book, I want readers to know that they're enough, that no matter what we've been through and how we're trying to grow, that you're all enough. We're enough. We try so hard to prove ourselves, and we overwork and we punish ourselves because we don't think we're enough. But the truth is we really are. And if we really felt that, we might not even need the medicine therapeutically in the first place. We would know we're enough.
That's interesting. Not so long ago, one of the participants in our study was having some nervousness prior to their psilocybin session. And I just felt like, the thing to tell her was that there's nothing wrong with you. Like you're only going to find out what's already true now. There's nothing wrong with you now. There will be nothing wrong with you while you're on the psilocybin. There'll be nothing wrong with you after.
Yeah.
That's all there is to get here, actually. It's not that big a deal. You don't have to be so nervous about it. Which seems very similar.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's another way of putting that sentiment.
Yeah, so many people in session, they do a couple things. They touch into that inner goodness that they felt that they were as children, that inner pure innocence that all of us were as children before the thing happened, before we got hurt, before we got pulled from innocence, that we still are that thing. We are still pure and innocent deep inside. And people recognize that. And they often say, oh my God, she was so innocent. It wasn't her fault. So we wake up to knowing it wasn't our fault. Yeah, we've done some stuff we have to own, we get to repair, but the essence of us is not damaged or broken. And people feel that when they're doing this work. That's one of the things. And then they often say, I'm enough. I'm enough. That's a freedom. That's where freedom comes from, knowing you're enough. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody.
Hello. What you do, is it in Boise?
Yes, mostly.
Your clinic, and you're doing ketamine and psilocybin there?
No, I do ketamine at the clinic. If I do psilocybin, it's on retreat, veteran retreats, first responder retreats in different parts of the Mexico, basically.
So we're in Los Angeles. Is there any places in Los Angeles or California where I was told it was illegal to do ketamine here in California, or I know it's in Oregon you can do it.
Ketamine is quite legal everywhere in America, but psilocybin is only currently legal in Oregon, Colorado, and a few municipalities. Oakland. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was for ketamine?
That's for psilocybin. Ketamine's legal everywhere. It's a FDA-approved medication.
So were there any clinics that are doing what you're doing here in Los Angeles?
So I can say that there's no one quite like Michael here in Los Angeles. There are people doing ketamine work in Los Angeles, though. There's a lot of ketamine clinics in LA. And there are some who are, some similar orientation. Maybe not exactly. Michael, do you know any folks in LA?
Not really. So he would be the one to know. I think there is a psychiatrist. One of my he's a SWAT operator. Now he's a chaplain, tactical chaplain. He rides with LAPD and does stuff as a chaplain. I think he does ketamine with someone who is a psychiatrist that does psychoanalysis, I think, while doing ketamine. So I'm a unicorn in some ways. Doing what I do is very unique. And I wrote the book so people could see there's these options, and hopefully I'm mentoring new generation of therapists to do what I do. But a lot of people fly into Boise, and I'm slowing that down. There's only one of me. Yeah. But he would be a good one to locate people who do ketamine treatment here in LA. Thank you.
And there really are a lot. If you just Google it, and you can kind of see, folks who mention some of the same kinds of approaches that Michael does. There's a lot of ketamine clinics that are not doing any therapy too.
Yeah, a lot.
So you have to have a discerning eye if you're interested in that combination.
Why is psilocybin so? It's only done in a few places here in America. Why is that?
Ronald Reagan.
Oh, that's a long.
That's a long
story.
conversation.
That's pre-Reagan, really.
Oh, okay. That's a long.
Yeah, it's a long story, but the
history.
bottom line is, back in the 50s, it was not illegal. And then a mycologist named Gordon Wasson, heard about this magic mushroom down in Mexico and was able to find someone, Maria Sabina, in Huautla de Jimenez, this little town of Mexico, Mazatec shamaness, who actually gave him an experience with these mushrooms. And that was their entree into Western knowledge. They'd been used around the world, though, for hundreds, thousands of years by many different traditions. And at some point, midway through the 60s into the early 70s, as they started being used more and more by, what became the hippie generation, there was a backlash. And there's a lot of great accounts of how this all happened and the socio-political reality of it all. But, they were made illegal in the late 60s and haven't been legalized yet, although we are getting fairly close. There's a lot of FDA trials that are FDA-sponsored trials that are showing enough clinical benefit that they're likely to be, psilocybin is likely to be approved soon. Which is different from psilocybin mushrooms. Psilocybin is the active, that's the molecule that has the most psychoactive properties of the psilocybin-containing mushrooms. The mushrooms are not yet legal either. Psilocybin and psilocybin mushrooms neither are legal in a widespread sense yet. But what's becoming clear is as more and more data is published, including work we're doing right here at USC, showing safety and clinical benefit, that it's just a matter of time. And how it will look is the big question, and the degree to which it becomes kind of co-opted by pharmaceutical companies or not. And will it be a legalization or a pure medicalization or some hybrid of the two, etc.
I was going to say all that too, so thank you for getting to it. She has a mic, that's why. So I'm sure she'll see you up there.
I'm curious about the different medicines you've chosen to use, particularly for talk therapy.
Yeah.
The ones I heard you mention, you mentioned just now psilocybin, but you mentioned ketamine and UFO. How do you talk with people when they're on ketamine?
Dosing is very important. And I don't do psychedelic psychotherapy on Bufo because it's such a powerful experience. I'm not going to interrupt and be, hey, what are you doing in there? It's like, got to let them have their experience. If I do, and I don't do psychedelic psychotherapy on retreats. Our retreatants have music, eye shades. I'm not engaged in the way I'm talking in the book during retreats or ceremonies, because that's not the point. But if they're with me just doing psilocybin, then it's dosing. Dosing is really important so that they're in and out. They're still aware enough to have a conversation, but they're also in the cosmos sometimes, and we're talking about that. We're talking about it in a way that facilitates their healing and growth. What might that mean to you? Why is that? Go explore it. What does that remind you of? And then but a lot of people come to me because there's real significant reasons. So brain tumors, and that they're like looking at their deaths. And so whatever we're talking about is going toward, are you making peace with your death or are you fighting it? Because that's what they're here for. On ketamine, it's also about dosing. And the way I know if they have too much is I'll ask a question. What'd you say? And I repeat the question. What'd you say? I'm like, I'm going to be quiet for a while and let them have their experience. And as they taper down, when the IV's done, we'll then get into the golden hour and we'll talk a lot after the session. So my staff and I are really very aware of their experience, their body weight, and what dose range is good for having conversation and what is not. Yeah.
One of the things that you talked about was how the medical community may co-opt this kind of thing. This is sort of the second question, so I'm being greedy with the question. My concern is that you're throwing them to people who have zero empathy and no experience with medicines themselves. I just went with a close friend who did a ketamine experience in a clinic in Sherman Oaks or something. And I mean, I was like, this guy doesn't have a clue what they're going through. How can he possibly help people? How can we create a vision for making these things happen with people who understand this medicines?
Well, yeah, that's a part of the hope. And the issue is that the medical model with ketamine is you put someone in a room and you give them an infusion or an injection, and they have this wild ride, but no support, no context for what's going on. And the clinician's like, it's good, something's happening in your brain, and the person's having a somewhat psychotic episode, let's say, in a room without support. That's unethical to me. I'm for the therapeutic model, the psychotherapeutic model, where someone, if even if they're not doing the work I'm doing, you have a caring guide, an empathic, caring person with someone on the medicine, just going, you're safe. Just tell me more. That person has they report much better experiences than those who are just doing the medical model of let's infuse you with this medicine. Yeah.
So you're in session and the client is somatically really, you gave the example of the person at the bottom of the stream, just feeling that peacefulness, and they report back to you. How big a deal do you make of that? How much do you try to savor that? Like, aha, or...
It depends what they want. They're driving. And I think the big deals I make is when I see them love themselves. When I see them really relate to themselves differently. I'm like, wow, I love the spiritual moments, the quiet moments. If they're coming because they're hyper aroused all the time and they have trauma responses, that could be an amazing thing, right? So I'm like, yes, in that case, if their goal is to find peace that is sustainable within their nervous systems and their self, we might ride that quiet wave. And then I might say, teach your body how this feels. Yeah, teach your body how this feels. Let every cell in your body feel this peace. And then they have to do that inner work of going, oh, right, this is what I'm here for. This is the peace I've always been looking for. Teach yourself that. Yeah.
And it's IV, not IM.
No, I do both, but IM is not great for people with serious traumas and sexual traumas and military stuff, because it's like it's a rocket ship, and the tapering of the IV is really gentle and helpful for people. Yeah.
My question is, since you have the perspective of being a monk or living a monk life in the mushrooms, I noticed I did a meditation retreat in Vipassana in Thailand, and diet was very important, at least the eating schedule. You can't eat after noon. And I know mushrooms have an effect on like the gut and digestive system, so I'm wondering how much is, because I know it's a lot of focus on like the mind and the brain, but to what degree is it the changes in the gut that are really making like a big impact?
That's a beautiful question. Yeah. Doctor?
One thing I can say, we are starting to collect stool samples from people before, just after, and then more
Just
prolonged
puts his
period
hand
after.
right out there. He's just like,
And the reason we're doing that is to answer this question. People haven't done that work yet.
Yeah.
There's a real growth of understanding about the microbiome, the balance of those trillions of bacteria that live in our guts, and which ones predominate, has a real impact on all manner of our health. And it turns out that our mental health is deeply interrelated with that too. But nobody's looked at it specifically in psychedelic studies. Nothing's been published yet. It's just a matter of time. And, I think, it's definitely worth mentioning that refreshed body experience that is so commonly experienced after a strong psychedelic. I'm not sure if it happens with ketamine in the way it does with the serotonergic ones, ayahuasca, psilocybin, etc. But there's oftentimes a sense of a reset of not just the brain, but definitely the guts too. Like, oh wow, I just feel comfortable. My stomach is okay, So I would be surprised if there's not some change because of that common experience people have.
And just psychosomatically, gut is intuition, and people having, so I love your question because there's multiple layers, and how we prepare ourselves to do the medicine often has to do with our relationship to food and the time we eat and what we don't put in before we have a ceremony. But people often start having a relationship to the voice of the gut. How many of us, the gut said, don't do it. And you're like, yeah, I know, but I'm going to do it. And then the thing happens that so it clears up. Metaphorically, it clears up at least a channel where people are like, oh, I'm hearing my inner voice, my gut wisdom, and I'm starting to follow it now. I'm listening. So that we do pay attention to. Thank you so much. Great question. Also, Anna, when you're done back there, there's a woman up here who would like to have a question too. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I was a little late, I apologize, so I might have missed this, but I'm curious, when you do psilocybin therapy, do you use the psilocybin molecule, the capsule, or do you use the full body mushroom?
It changed throughout the years. I've done this for several decades, so I used to always do the mushroom itself, then I've done tea. I have a person who grinds it into very fine, into pills. I don't have access to what labs do.
The second part of the question is, do you find, asking for a friend, if you use the full body mushroom versus, do you find a difference between just the psilocybin medicine versus the entire entourage effect of the fruiting body itself, or even take it further, the living mushroom, like when it's just freshly harvested, it's like 90% is evaporated. So I'm curious if you've tested any of those, or if you find a difference between the fruiting body itself and the medicine.
Well, these are great questions that would be best answered in a lab, to answer that like systematically, how this has this. But for me, I'm
like your instinct. Like, do people get better? Do you find there's more, teaching, learning, information, whatever that comes from the fruiting body versus the psilocybin isolate?
I've seen greater. I will say, anecdotally, I have seen people have wider, bigger cosmic experiences when they're eating the fruiting bodies.
Okay. Have you ever used the mushroom fresh, before dehydration?
No, I've seen it and I've never used it personally, and I don't use medicine personally anymore, and I haven't used that with any clients. Yeah, a good question. Yeah, and even though I don't use anymore the fruiting body, I actually don't use that in it. But I still would put the pills on the altar. We still hold them in the hand and have a relationship with it, asking the mushroom to do what it will. And so whether it's the fruiting body or even the pill, it's having a relationship with the mushroom itself. I think I still find that sacred. And I think the clients or the people I work with also do too.
I would say one thing about that is, so you've had the experience with ground up fruiting body and not ground up fruiting body, but you haven't had the experience with pharmaceutical grade, either extracted from the fruiting body or made de novo in a lab, right? And I have had those experiences being in the kind of academic research world, where almost all the research that's been funded, I think I'm not yet aware of anything that's been funded to do in a lab anywhere on Earth with the whole mushroom. just hasn't been done yet with FDA, DEA, IRB approvals. Some studies have been done of naturalistic use of the fruiting body, of the mushroom itself, in different settings at a retreat center in Oregon where it's legal to do, and just tracking what's happening there, right? But to actually give mushrooms in a lab just hasn't yet been done. I'm sure it's just a matter of time. And this question will eventually be asked and answered. Are there appreciable differences between the mushroom, whether it's ground up or not ground up, it's still the whole mushroom, versus either what we use in our lab here, which is psilocybin plus a couple of other of the psychoactive ingredients that are also in the mushroom but extracted out from the mushroom in a lab somewhere in Canada, versus this third option, which is actually constructing that molecule, that psilocybin molecule, in a lab from raw ingredients, which is also done. And the first work I did 25 years ago in Switzerland was with that, with some psilocybin that Albert Hofmann had synthesized back in the 50s. So the thing that I want to say about it is, A, it's an unanswered question, the difference between them, but B, there's this other aspect of it does truly feel sacred to be in the presence of people taking these substances, whether it's a synthesized or an extracted from a mushroom or a whole mushroom, to be a sensitive, therapeutically inclined person in the presence of another under the effect of that, there's something sacred that's going on. That's how it feels. And I do think that there's likely a huge impact of the respect and the preparation that the therapist or the guide is giving to somebody, regardless of which of the three of those categories. That if you could take a synthesized psilocybin capsule compared to the full mushroom, and if the full mushroom is being given by somebody who's just like, hey, take this, man, versus somebody who's really taking their time to give you some orientation to what possibilities may lie ahead for you, that synthesized one being given that way is much likelier to have effect. So there's so many contextual impacts besides just the substance itself, which kind of gets back to your point of in the end, they're just opening up a doorway to something that's a kind of sacred aspect of reality that normally we're not so attentive to.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Doc, for sharing your wisdom. I have a question, and it's based on your work and whether you've worked with those who have borderline personality disorder, CPTSD, and I'm curious to see how either meditation, the psychedelics, or both have helped them throughout their journey. And is that something that you touch on in your book?
Great question. I have, of course, worked with so many with CPTSD, complex or chronic, let's say, from a whole lifetime of events, not just from, this is for the audience, not just one event. And I have worked with folks with personality disorders. It's difficult. It's difficult because it comes out. It comes out at me while we're together. All the things that they, folks with those traits, it's amplified in the room. And so then it's, because with personality disorders, it's usually a between a thing and the thing one person's doing pushes or pulls. And with a person with a serious borderline personality disorder, the whole clinic is working together, because the person sometimes will triangulate and, say one clinician said one thing and another clinician said another thing. So we're all working together to support them to realize, do you know what you're doing? Are you aware of what you're doing? Is that helpful? So when I'm working in medicine, it'll sometimes come up. I'm taking journey notes, and what they're saying, I'm documenting, and what I say back, I put in parentheses so that they can read it later. And we're specifically working on how they're relating and how what they might be doing is pushing away or grabbing in really tight, because they're here to have better relationships And so now it's becoming relational work while someone's on medicine. It's complex. You have to have a really strong sense of boundaries as a clinician to say, hey, I'm not going to take this on, and I'm just going to point back what you're doing. It's not always, it's not easy work, but it can be very helpful for the person to see themselves so clearly. How's that?
Thank you. I actually remember my main question, and it's in relation to what I just asked,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of fragmentation that goes on with people who struggle with these things. So
Yes.
how does one find that feeling of being whole again?
That's beautiful. Yeah. We're pointing from the beginning, before the hurt happened. There's a wholeness that was there before the hurt. And you all know what I'm saying, before the hurt, because we're all kids who were hurt in different ways, neglected, outright abused, told things about ourselves. And I'm pointing to what is whole within us. And so we often go back in the medicine work to the point where they were hurt the most. And we see the preciousness of ourselves as that age. And we see the hurt that was done to us at that age while we're on medicine, not me, but the client, right? And there's a tenderness and compassion that starts to flood for that part of themselves that were really, really hurt in that age, where the personality was starting to form. And we do tender, nurturing, compassionate love for that part of them. And then we also start growing up. There's a point where it's not just enough to have compassion and tenderness for the part of us that was wounded, but at 48 or 67 or 30 something, we have to start growing up. And so we're also doing that work simultaneously too. Yeah.
That's very personal question. Thank you so much for answering that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So it's getting a little past our designated time.
Yeah, man, I'm ready for
So to
sleep.
respect everyone's time, I do want to start wrapping up. But I really, just thank you so much for coming all the way down from Boise to do this for us. And I'll remind everyone there's an opportunity now. We're going to bring a table up here, actually. So Michael can kind of hang out here and sign books if anybody wants to buy a book. We don't have to scram right away. We can kind of, hang out and say hi a bit. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you all very much, very, very much.